Carl McNickles are brothers from Chicago, the Chicago suburb of Lansing. Carl, who's 20, wrestles and plays football on an athletic scholarship for Penn University, and Shyquan is 18, still in high school. Neither have ever been in trouble with the law, that is until last month when they traveled to Miami to celebrate Shyquan's birthday. Hours after arriving in Miami Beach, the two brothers found themselves behind bars, where they would remain for 33 days without being formally charged with a crime. They were arrested as suspects in 2 armed robberies. They were told they fit the description of the suspects: black men in black clothes with black ski masks, even though they were visibly wearing different clothes. The brothers' parents retained attorney Tony Moss to represent them after 33 days, the maximum time someone can be held in Florida without being formally charged, they were released. The case was dismissed, but the arrest still stayed on their records. For Carl, that means losing his athletic scholarship to Penn University, and now his parents can't afford to send him there without it. Tonight, I'm glad to have Tony Moss, who represented the brothers on the criminal matter in Florida. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Tony, Carl McNickles, father of the 2 young men who were wrongfully arrested, was supposed to come on tonight, but due to pending litigation, it was best that he didn't appear. So you could answer maybe this question for us. This whole ordeal had to be incredibly heavy on that family. Can you tell us how they've been coping with all of this?
About as well as can be expected, considering that this was a situation that they certainly never saw themselves getting caught up in, especially on what was supposed to be a very festive occasion, that being Shyquan's 18th birthday. They are certainly emotionally in a state of turmoil, as I'm sure the boys are, and we are in the process of pursuing potential legal options. I will not be representing them on any civil litigation, but we are working to get them the best possible counsel for that phase of the case.
Can you explain how Shyquan and Carl were arrested and then held for 33 days without being formally charged?
Okay, well, as far as the arrests were concerned, there were 2 separate incidents. One of them at 2:45 in the morning of May 8th, again, Shyquan's birthday. The second incident allegedly took place at 2:52, 7 minutes apart. Young men were arrested at 3:18. The first incident was involved 2 alleged victims who described, as you said, the assailants as 4 or 5 black males, all wearing ski masks and all wearing all black clothing, and that was it. They supposedly jumped out of a dark SUV. That was the only description we had for a vehicle. After taking approximately $200 for the victims, they allegedly jumped back into the SUV and fled in an eastbound direction, going back toward Collins Avenue and Ocean Drive. The second incident took place just east of Ocean Drive in an alley behind a number of hotels. The victims the alleged victims in the second incident never gave any kind of description other than 4 or 5 black men wearing ski masks. They were never asked to identify anybody on the scene. They refused to come to the Miami Beach Police Department for further interviews. They did not even want to provide a clothing description. But because they said that their assailants were 4 or 5 black males wearing ski masks, and because of the proximity of the incidents, the police decided that probable cause for the first one provided enough probable cause for arrest in the second.
Okay, so let me ask you, did they even find a ski mask whatsoever on your clients?
They did, but these were consistent with masks that they wear in Chicago during the pandemic. For one.
Right, so they weren't
for
ski
another
masks.
thing. No, they were not ski masks. In the second incident, one of the so-called victims claimed that an assailant wore a blue bandana over his face. No blue bandana was found on any of the young men who were arrested. And if you've seen the photos of the clothing that Carl and Shyquan were wearing, they were clearly not all black items. Shiquan happened to have a red Nike T-shirt underneath a black hoodie. Again, they're just coming down from Chicago. It had been fairly cool up there when they had left town. Carl wore a pair of Crocs that were so Best way I can put it, they were so flamboyant color-wise. As I've said in another interview, Stevie Wonder could have seen that they were not all black. Not only that, but the pants that Shyquan wore, they were not black. They were gray, and they were very seriously distressed. Another detail that should have been picked up but never was.
Now, why were they not issued a bond amount?
Because one of the charges each one of them faced was armed robbery with a firearm. Under Florida law, there are certain crimes that are punishable by up to life in prison. Armed robbery with a firearm is one. Any kind of violent offense with a firearm is generally falls in that bracket. So in those cases, there is no automatic right to a bond. It's strictly discretionary with the judge, with the presiding judge. So a hearing has to be held. It's like a mini trial, basically, where the state will put on the detective, the investigators, maybe one or two civilian witnesses to make the case why the accused should remain in custody without bond. Of course, the defense has a chance to counteract that, but in any given case, in any event, it's discretionary with the judge. If he or she decides that bond is not appropriate, then that decision is coming around the pipeline.
And I'm guessing that they also didn't find a firearm on your clients either.
They did not find a firearm. They did not find any of the property supposedly taken from the victims in the second incident, which included a woman's driver's license, a New York license, an iPhone, a purse, and a number of other items. Not a single item of potential evidentiary value was found on any of the young men. Neither was there a firearm found on any of them.
So they didn't fit the description that was given. They don't have a criminal record, and they didn't find a firearm. It's pretty obvious why this case was dismissed, but can you please tell us why it actually ended up being dismissed?
Because the victims, or the so-called victims in the first incident, the 2:45 a.m. incident, would not respond to the state attorney's office to meet with the prosecutor before the filing decision was made. Without their being able to come in to either confirm or to refute the description that they had, or to add additional detail, the case was not in position to go forward, because without their ID, there was no basis for filing charges in that incident. Again, this is the first one. And without probable cause in that one, then there would be clearly no probable cause in the second incident, where there were no identifications at all.
Okay, so the case is now dismissed, but the arrests are still on their records. Why?
Because that's the way Florida law is written. If your charges are dismissed, or if you go to trial and you're found not guilty, you do have the right to have your record expunged, which basically means the court file would be destroyed. But there is a process that's required. You have to fill out an application. You have to provide a fingerprint card to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, because they have to do a nationwide check to verify that that the applicant has never been arrested or convicted in any other jurisdiction, and that person has no active warrants from any location. Once they confirm that there is no other outstanding record, then they issue what's called a certificate of eligibility, which can then be taken before a judge. The judge will usually at that point sign the order for the expunction, and the file is totally destroyed. But that only applies, like I said.
But Tony, that doesn't take a whole lot of time. You know what I mean? Like to check whether they have any active warrants around, or if they have no criminal history. The prosecution can actually intervene at this point and make this process go a lot quicker, right?
Theoretically they could, but that would involve them having to convince FDLE to expedite the process. I doubt seriously if FDLE would take them seriously, even if the prosecutor were so inclined. That's the nature of the bureaucracy of the organization.
So what's the next steps for this family to have this wrong righted?
Well, I've already provided the information for them to start the process of getting the records expunged. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of securing the best possible counsel for the case. So at this point, we're just in the investigation phase, but we are still within any statute of limitations, but we are moving as quickly as we can to secure the justice that the family deserves.
All right, Attorney Tony Moss, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you for having me.